Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, so I'm in between shifts here, so I'm lubricated nicely with some couple of beers. All the Oktoberfest beers coming out now. It's nice. It's cooling off at night. And it's still August, so you know me. I'll go over Allan Bryce, the British publisher, Dark Side, right? Horror, and he does Infinity, which is not just science fiction, like everything else, right? You can say genre stuff, but this issue in particular. I'm looking through it, and it's just the amount of stuff in this. Brilliant chat, right? We'll start out. Oh, the Pink Panther. He's mentioning the old British war comics, right? Commando comics. Remember them? Of course you do. Launched in 1961, Britain's longest-serving war comic. Oh, you know me. You've seen my videos. You know how I feel about the Anglo-Americans in that conflict 80 years ago, which you're all paying for now. I like how he mentions, like, take that Fritz, Tommy's, with the fighting the Germans. Die English Schweinhund, right? As they face the might of the British Army, but also those fiendish Japs, right? The Japanese and the Germans, like the best people of their respective uh, sides of the world. Anyway, sorry. But it's interesting how he says here, they may have toned down the anti-German stuff. Well, I don't know about that. So, but he's taking a little piss, right? Single-handedly storming an enemy machine gun and ventilating a sneering crowd of Bosch baddies. So it's just kind of funny. But the thing I like here though is he mentions, right, the thing about the underrated. I keep mentioning the underrated British artists like Gordon Livingston, Ian Kennedy. I remember him. And Ken Barr, right? Right. So you had like I said, I always said the British style is very underrated of the comic art, right? We live in a PC age where a lot of the above is considered offensive. Well, not really. I mean, the Japanese maybe, but the Germans, right? Although I keep seeing more and more now, the Russians are the baddies, right? But not the Soviets. Well, if you know what I've been saying on my channel, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? We liked them better when they were Soviets. Well, who's we? Oh, well, you'll see. Oh, Hun bait. Oh, you bastard. All right. So we'll go through. What is this? More Harry Potter? What is this? Enough of the Harry Potter. Come on, man. Are you nuts? Alright, so he goes into, right. And this is Alan writing this. Of course, Godzilla, right? Mothra versus Godzilla. Or in America, right? Godzilla versus the Thing. Now, of course, he doesn't mention in this article why it was called Godzilla versus the Thing. Right, which is also the free poster in here. Oh, I'm taking this out and putting it up on my wall like I'm some friggin' 14-year-old in the 80s, right? Of course, Mothra was released. The film was released, I believe, by It was released by not American International. It was released by someone else, so they couldn't call it Mothra for the release in America. And he mentions the film. He mentions how, oh, look, the old Super 8. Look at that. He mentions the film has a very good reputation. This is probably one of the best Godzilla films. I've gone over this before. The epic battle. The idea of Mothra, right? The idea of a giant moth fighting Godzilla, which is probably also like, Godzilla versus the giant moth. A lot of people are going to be like, what? But you know how the Japanese are. Okay, the moth, of course, is a deity. She is a deity, right? Go through the film. Of course, the amazing film, the battle. Godzilla's still a baddie, right? And you have of course, remember the little twins, the Peanuts, right? The twin sisters, right? Who are the little fairies who try to say, right? There they are. Remember that? What a movie, man. He mentions like the music, how great, how epic, how Wagnerian the music is, and how, Mothra had, in the end, I always bring up the idea of when you see Mothra when she releases the poison gas, and they're like, they're like the humans are like, finish Godzilla off, and she's like, no, Mothra is dying, right? They're explaining to them that Mothra was already dying at the point, and you see the last thing she does is she puts her wing over the egg, to protect it. And one last thing, of course, we know the irony of it is that the silkworm like offspring, when there's two of them, right? They actually have the soft ability to negate Godzilla's brute force. Anyway, so for the what was the letter section? This is interesting. Apparently, there were spy films, right? Deadlier Than the Male, with Richard Johnson. I always mention Richard Johnson as a hero. Now, you see Richard Johnson, you remember him as sort of a baddie, right? He was in The Haunting, but Richard Johnson was a very underrated British actor. When Christopher Lee passed away a week before, I think 2 weeks before, Richard Johnson passed away, and it was sort of overshadowed that. But Richard Johnson was a very interesting actor. I didn't even know these films existed. Look how cool that is. They're fighting it's like a James Bond type film. Oh, look at these broads. Anyway, all right. So the Pink Panther. They're right. The original one, the star was David Niven, right? But then, of course, Clouseau became the focus. Now, of course, what's that? That's my itinerary. You shan't see that. The Pink Panther. I remember the cartoons, right? They mentioned the cartoons. Remember the cartoons? The Pink Panther movies are funny, right? They're in Europe. Of course, my favorite's always gonna be, right, the Pink Panther Strikes Back, where Inspector Dreyfus. Oh, his name is Dreyfus in France. Oh, what does that say? I'm not, no offense to the great Herbert Long, man. What a great actor. What a great actor. Dreyfus at the end, right? But my favorite one's always going to be the Pink Panther Strikes Again, right? Where like Dreyfus is like becomes the enemy. It's kind of funny. People say it's like it's not hit and miss. I don't know. I mean, the scene with the little Indian midget. Oh, I said the M word. Oh no. In the Oktoberfest with the Bavarian. Oh man. Look at this. The German Inspector Clouseau, der beste Mann. What's that? Bear Interpol. Interpol. Remember Interpol? But I always thought this was the funniest one, right? Remember Kato? Not today, Kato. Of course, these films are so politically incorrect, and that's why I love them. Remember? Your dog, does it bite? No. And then he gets bit by the dog. He goes, I thought you said your dog didn't bite. That's not my dog. Oh, no. Dude, I love how politically incorrect these films are. Making fun of everything, making a joke of all kinds of things. So, anyway, Benini. Remember this freaking guy? I never liked that guy. Anyway. The Tarzan. Oh, now here. Oh, you want to talk about politically incorrect? As a New Yorker, everyone remembers, man. BTD, if you're out there, man. Remember every Sunday they would show Tarzan, right? Johnny Weissmuller. Boy, oh boy. Cheetah. Right? Remember? Woman. Right? Yeah, I love these old films. Spike Lee doesn't like these films. Fuck you, bro. I love these films. I love when you have 10 natives on top of Tarzan and he would just he would throw his arms out and throw all like 10, 20 guys off him because he was the superior man in Africa. Oh, now of course I'm kind of joking a little bit. I always argue about the Tarzan films that they're very nuanced. Remember, the real villains are always the white, guys, the pith helmets who want to steal stuff, right? And there's always the porters, right? The friendly Africans, and of course the animals. So of course now, of course Tarzan, just like Conan in the films later, but like the Tarzan films, you mentioned, of course, Edgar Rice Burroughs, right? The original Tarzan, if you ever read it, right, is so unlike these films. Tarzan can barely talk in these. The actual Tarzan was, of course, highly intelligent. He was an aristocratic youth, but he had to learn he learned written language on his own. Okay, and the whole joke of the Tarzan novel was that when he was actually taught how to speak, he was taught by a Frenchman, so he had to learn English after learning how to speak in French but write in English. Anyway, I recommend the Tarzan, the first novel. Very not like you would think, and very, like I said, always politically incorrect. And of course, they mentioned their late. I remember the later Tarzan films that I remember seeing. Right, obviously, the Weissmuller was the black and white films, but they mentioned Tarzan in color, and I'm trying to remember some of these. But man, right here, Tarzan's Three Challenges. They used to show this on Channel 11 all the time. Yo, remember this movie? This movie was awesome, bro. This movie was no joke. Man, I'm telling you. Anyway, so, now you know me, Star Wars, but like this was awesome, dude. The Empire Strikes Back. I remember how young I was when The Empire Strikes Back came out. Like the hotel you, when I saw Star Wars, I was in a giant chair because I was a little kid, and all I remember was Peter Cushing, in the dark, like boardroom, explosions and scary aliens. Now, by the time this came out, all right, I remember even saying we saw it on a Saturday. I think we saw it at the Whitestone Theater, okay, which is funny because my stepfather at the time, his family lived in Bayside, Queens, but I lived in South Brooklyn, Gravesend. We went all the way up there. And I remember the film started at 9 o'clock, and I remember saying, "Oh, I can't see this film because I have to go to bed at 9 o'clock." And they're like, I remember my mother was like, "No, we'll make an exception. It's okay. We're going to see the movie." I mean, really, this is the best. The first one was great. This was such a great film. They got the stop motion guy in here. Remember the stop motion animation? They have all the guys. I didn't even realize that the guy from Cheers was one of the soldiers here. And they have the different, these poor guys that get killed. This guy, I always liked this guy. Was cool. It was very showed you the Empire as competent soldiers, right? They're supposed to be the Germans. And Yoda, you're too old to begin the training. Anyway, I remember when this came out again. I think in '84, when they re-released this. I remember watching this again. Amazing film, very dark, right? Remember the Emperor before the Emperor was revamped, right? With the Palpatine. Who the hell is that? I don't know. This is the Emperor. This is the Emperor, right? I remember this. It was apparently an actress in a mask with chimpanzee eyes superimposed and someone else's voice. Crazy. Look at my man, the guy at the ice cream maker who flees. Will Hood. You remember this dude? Yo, that's my man. What's up? You got the ice cream maker, yo. Man, what can I say? I remember as a kid when I saw at the end of this was so bleak. I was like, oh my god, like what? This is really dark. So anyway, I'm gonna do the one video here. So let me go through this was great. The Irwin Allen's A Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Now, and Lost in Space. Now, of course, I remember watching Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. I think on Channel 9. Remember they had the same white ape creature that they had in Star Trek for some reason, but Lost in Space. Remember? Oh dear. It's fucking campy, very campy. Lost in Space, but if any of y'all remember, man, that's not how it was, man. The black and white first season of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Richard Basehart, David Hedison, Kowalski, remember? This guy, Sharky, and Chip, right? Chip was the wannabe officer, right? The black and white first season of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, man, there was some really, really good episodes, man. Very dramatic, very serious. I think Robert Duvall was in one of those episodes, right? Of course, and the first season of Lost in Space, the very campy show later, but when it was in black and white, it was actually a really good show. Remember, Dr. Smith, was not like this campy, queen. He was like a sinister jerk-off, asshole, always betraying the Robinsons. Right? I remember that. I only remember this from the Sci-Fi when Sci-Fi Channel came out, the reruns that they showed. But and then of course I mean this gets a little over the top for me, and I like. I told you I have a soft spot in my heart for campy stuff to a degree. But the voice of Bomb in the Sea, they mentioned how like it eventually became a monster of the week show. And you know what? With the werewolf and like all the lava men, right? The one with the puppets. It was I don't know. It was a fun show. Oh, the flying sub! Remember how cool the flying sub was? Actually, you don't because most of y'all are younger than me. So anyway, I will finish this. All the time they go the time tunnel. The time tunnel was actually kind of cool. It's a very popular show, but Irwin Allen, who guess what, his ancestor, his family was from Russia, those Russians, right? But he was, as funny as it seems like how funny these shows were in some ways, how campy these shows were. The man was super serious. He didn't like any humor in the shows. That's interesting. So, all right, we'll wrap this up. I always like miniature work. Apparently, there's something in Britain, miniature buildings. I like that stuff. Apparently Slade. Remember Slade? No, I don't remember Slade. I'm not British, right? I just know that their song "Come On Feel the Noise" was covered by Quiet Riot when I was a kid, and that was like the first heavy metal song band to become very popular in America. In the 80s, but like apparently this film was very interesting. Of course they were a glam band, right? Because a bunch of ugly chaps, but it's always erotic when you have a very glam femi band and the guys are all ugly dudes. But apparently this film was kind of dark, right? Um, the drummer lost his girlfriend, wife to be in the car crash. So anyway, very interesting. Noddy Holder, there he is. Noddy's still alive. What an English name, Noddy Holder. Anyway, and that's Infinity, man. My man Alan did it again, mate. Between Darkseid and this man, you're probably making the best friggin' magazines there, which is funny because of course the magazine industry is gonna be dead within less than a decade. But you're the last of the Mohicans, my friend. All right. Oh, this what great stuff this was about. All right, later.